Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Women in Music South Africa in Conversation with. Today, we are joined by another phenomenal woman, and she will be introducing herself to you. Yes, Ms. Kelebogile, please do introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi all. So I'm Kelebogile Phehle, and I'm the accountant at the Composers, Authors and Publishers Association, which is commonly known as Capasso. And I've been with the organization for a couple of years now, since 2016. So that's me.
What is Capasso? You mentioned composers and publishers. What is a composer? What is a publisher? And what is the association all about?
Okay. So we are a collective management society, meaning that we represent a group of rights holders. So for Capasso specifically, it will be your composer, people who are involved in the composition of musical works, as well as publishers who would be an organization that would represent a group of composers within it. And what Capasso specifically does is represent mechanicals, which is a copying of work, of musical work. So that can be either a download that takes place, or it can be your streaming, or if music is used in your adverts and the like. So that's so there's different royalty streams in music, but the particular one that Capasso focuses on is on mechanical and representing the composers as well as the publishers.
Okay, so mechanical rights is the streaming and the
Copying.
the downloads, copying.
Yes, and it comes in various forms, such as
who's copying
it comes
this music? Who's copying the music?
So it can be it's your music users. So that will be, for example, your Apples, your Deezers, if you are into streaming and digital, and also your iTunes.
Yes.
So they are the music users. The same would go for production houses when they do their adverts, for example, and they are taking musical work and putting the musical work on an advert. Which advert have you heard that doesn't have music in it?
Exactly. Okay.
So the music users would be the different types that I've just provided right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm learning something every day. Okay. So now you represent both, because with other organizations, they represent either, the composer or the publisher. So you actually represent both. You work with both parties, being the composers and the publishers.
Yes.
Have you ever found yourself in a position as an organization, in a position where, let's say, for example, a composer and a publisher do you deal, like, have you ever experienced conflicts between a composer and a publisher where, for example, one would say, but we own this, or we are responsible for these compositions, or a composer will say, but no, but I did not give you permission, or somebody else has given them permission? Because there's a lot of legalities that comes with that type of setup of your streaming but now, because we are focusing on new talent that is still trying to understand the music industry, that question comes from, for example, DJ Spanbani featured me on a song. It was recorded in his bedroom somewhere in a small town, and then it became a big song. And then now DJ Spanbani, the song is used by, let's say, a beverage brand, as their background music, but I'm not getting a cent. But now there's a publisher that represents this DJ to say, we have the rights to represent our client, who would be, this this composer, the producer, and then you'd have this person who is possibly the author, you know, or the voice behind. Like do you experience such conflicts where yeah, publishers, composers, people come and say, but somebody is making money out of my work and I've never received a single cent?
Well, that happens all the time. I
Really?
suppose, yeah, that's the music industry that we are in,
Mm,
you know. But basically, what it comes down to is making sure that when you start working with someone, you need to make sure that you got your agreements in place.
mm,
But otherwise, yeah, because with everything that you were mentioning, if you mentioned where you are the composer and someone is publishing and all of that, so there has to be
mm,
a publishing agreement, and
mm,
in that agreement, then you are discussing you are discussing that on a particular piece of work that you both work on. What are the percentage splits that you agree on, to say, for me on this work as a composer, maybe the percentage split is 20 or 50% that I'll take from the usage of the work, and this one is saying, no, I'll take this much. And sometimes you find there's more than one composer, just to
mm,
complicate your question. There could be 5 composers. There's no limit, to be honest, in terms of the number of composers or people that can work on a musical piece. But important is that you need to have an agreement amongst yourselves, because for CMOs, we don't get involved in the agreements themselves, right?
mm,
So that is on your part. And that is why the education of our composers, even our publishers, is so crucial. Because then when you start, because at the end of the day, we're talking money.
yeah.
So as you are sitting and you're doing and you're working on that work, it's you need to be thinking, okay, percentages, what's my cut going to be once this piece of work generates revenue. But I think it's the industry that we're in. But where we as Capasso come across such situations, we don't pay out that work the minute we know that there is a dispute.
Mm,
Because then if there's a dispute, then it makes it even difficult for us or any other CMO to know who to pay. If we pay you, this one is saying, no, but I own 100%, and you say, no, it's 50-50. So who gets paid? So in such a circumstance, then we put the works in, we make a note that the works are in dispute, and then and we'll only make a payment once there's been a resolution in the matter.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Now I'm finding out about Capasso for the first time today, right?
Mhm.
I'm hearing what it is that you deal with, the mechanical rights, and what mechanical rights are.
Mm.
And I've had songs that have been, you know, made available for downloads in previous years. I've had songs that have been available on these streaming platforms and so forth, but I have never ever registered with Capasso for mechanical rights. Am I now in a position to now register with you guys? Let's say, for example, online, if you know you have a platform for me to register online, and then do I lose out on the previous work, or hona le mo le kentseng stash somewhere? Do you save? Are there funds that are put aside for work that has never been claimed? Or is it a matter of, okay, since you're only notifying us now, you'll only get paid, let's say, for 2019, 2020? Or does that mean as soon as I register, then it means, hooray, every single thing that I've ever released will be able to be taken care of and, let's say, possibly paid out by Capasso?
Okay, so it depends, but when you sign up with Capasso, what happens is that you are giving us a mandate to go out and license your work, get your work licensed and collect the relevant revenue streams. So if you think about it, if you for example, joining in 2019, then it means that in 2012, 2016, 2018, we didn't have your mandate. You didn't instruct us, because that mandate is an instruction to say, this is me, and I give you the mandate to go out and do the licensing, do the collection, and all of that. So you haven't given us a mandate. And what you find is with some music users, um, we need to put in a claim for our members' works. So when we put in a claim for our members' works, you having not been a member, then it means that when we put a claim, we say, okay, here are our members' works, and we put in a claim, then we then get paid on that claim that we've put in. And you maybe became a member in like 2020, and let's say in 2015, we were dealing with this music users, we were putting in our claims, getting works paid. So you can see that when we were doing all of that, we hadn't received your mandate. So in certain so that's mainly on the digital side. But for your broadcasters, for example, we can do what we can issue things like a blanket license, where we cover a lot of works, which would mainly though still be based on our members. So you can join. In fact, the sooner, based on what I've said, the sooner you join, the better, so that you don't to lose out. But in all honesty, if we didn't have your mandate in 2010, then it does make it a bit difficult for us to pay out anything in 2020 when you now decide to become a member.
But I didn't know about Capasso. So, like, for example, the reason I'm asking this is that there was once a workshop hosted by another CMO, right? And when we're saying CMO, we're talking collecting
management societies.
Management societies. So it was a workshop, and in attendance, obviously, were some of the members. And I remember one lady saying that, but I've never received payment from Capasso, and I've had, I think you were there, actually. I think you were there. It's the last woman in music. I want to get
okay, I was.
Remember,
I was
yes. Yes, you were in the panel. I actually thought it's another collecting society, but remember she said,
okay,
I've never received a single cent from Capasso. And the response was, have you ever notified Capasso of your work? And so that's where this question is coming from, Hore. A lot of people are not necessarily familiar with Capasso. You know, people are, I think we are all trying to educate as much as we can, because obviously we're trying to eliminate, that whole people dying as paupers, exploitation and. But now somebody is finding out for the first time. Are you saying then they've lost out on the many years, or are you saying that you will be able to recoup work that was not notified from those years? I think that's what I'm trying to establish.
Okay, the chances of that are extremely unlikely, to be honest. Hence, I mentioned that when you've notified your works, and you give us the mandate, then you enable us to be able to put in a claim, especially with the large digital service providers, because that, in fact, music is, if you look at the movement of music, there's a lot of activities that's happening on the digital space. So when we go and engage them, then we are putting in claims, and those claims are coming from the notification of works, and we will get paid based on the claims. So now then the question becomes, but if somebody now comes along and now in that claim that we have, that pot that we have that just got paid to us, so where then are we going to take that money from to go and pay someone who wasn't a member and has never notified Capasso of their works? So I think what we do is that we deal with it on a case by case basis, so that we do not also prejudice
Mm,
rights holders,
mm.
but we also need to be realistic in the way in which we approach the matter. But we do look at it deal with it on a case by case basis. So it's not to say the door will just be shut in your face, especially if maybe if there's any way that we can assist, then we will do that. But I don't want to say the door is wide open, because
Yeah.
realistically, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I want to find out from you is, as a as a composer, or as a firstly, as a composer, we are referring to a creator of music, that being whether it's the person that sits and makes the music on on these softwares. We're talking about
Mm-hmm.
somebody that's the author that writes the lyrics, right, of the
Yes.
music. Are we also
Mm-hmm.
referring to the person that sings, or does that mean hore, it's, do you, or does that person only under, like, for example, is that, what's the question, does that person only fall, do they only claim with the other collecting society, or as somebody whose voice is used in an ad, because at the end of the day, they wouldn't be the song that's playing on this ad if my voice was not a part of the music, whether I produced it or whether I wrote the lyrics. But the fact remains that my voice is in there. Do I then have the right to submit or notify you, or like, how does that work, or am I left out in the cold? Because I think that
Okay.
that's something that a lot of people might want to understand.
Okay, so you don't get left out in the cold. So there will be different societies that
Uh-huh.
will then deal with someone like that.
Oh.
So where we would come in is specifically on the copyright side, where there is that composition taking place, be it from the lyricist or from the person who's composing on the work. Now, sometimes you do find where a composer also becomes the artist. So what you are talking about, the person in front with the
The
voice,
voice.
basically, that would be your artist. So you do find, in fact, you see it a lot where the voice is also the composer in the work. So in that case, we would pay them a mechanical royalty for uses of their work where they would have composed or have been part of the composition. But the other part now, when we are now talking recordings and getting paid in that stream, now that becomes a different royalty stream that the other societies would deal with.
So there are a lot, like, I'm sitting here as a new artist, I'm thinking, there's so many societies. Why do I need, I understand that the one deals with composers and authors, the other one deals with who talking, Sampra deals,
Artists, yes, and all.
yes, and then you guys deal with composers and publishers. Why
Mhm.
is it important for me as somebody who's starting out to be registering with everyone? Like, it doesn't, don't I just, isn't there just one society that I can just register with, that will take care of everything? Or is there, do I then find someone to manage this? Is it safe for me to find somebody to manage the notification of my work? Or what, am I putting myself at risk of trusting someone to notify you of my work, and then the next thing this person claims when notifying that they own the work? Like, why do I need to register with all of you?
You need to, because it's a business. Remember, music is a business, and I think we need to move into that mentality where we don't just take this as a side activity. This is someone's bread and butter. And in the same way that an entrepreneur who's going into any kind of business will make sure that he knows who the industry players are, he knows what's happening, he knows that he needs to register maybe with the NHBRC and all of that. The same applies here, you know. So in the same way, you need to know the industry players in the space that you are coming in. You need to know the collecting management societies. You need to know what they do and who you need to register with. And you know, because there are CMOs in other African, in fact, across the world, not just in Africa, across the world. So some societies are one. Like I was in Ghana, I think last year, and with the other CMOs, and some of them are one-stop shops where they do everything in one place. But when you look at the circumstances around why they are one, it made sense because they've part of it was that some of them had a smaller music creative industry. Some of them, it's because of the size of the population. So there are different reasons that go into why they would have to have one. And where there's a much larger market or much larger activity, then to me, it makes sense that the CMOs are then able to specialize in a particular area so that they can be more effective in addressing the relevant royalty streams for the relevant rights holders. I mean, just look at the size of take your Samro. I think it's one of the largest CMOs in Africa. And now take Capasso, put it in there. And now you are taking Sampra, you're putting it in there. Now, you know, we would have to think, would that be the most effective way to serve the rights holder? You know, it might make it easier maybe in terms of registration, so that you just register with one and then you be on your way. But to me, it's a multifaceted issue. We need to, there's different things that go into it. And at the end of the day, what all CMOs are trying to really achieve is being effective in what it is that they need to do, being effective, even if it's specializing in one area like it is at the moment, where we just specializing on mechanicals, that one is specializing on a certain area. If it means that we are effective in the royalty, licensing and collecting and distributing by focusing on that one stream, then it might not be such a bad thing after all. So there are pros and cons, you know, in as much as if there's one CMO, in other African countries that does everything, there's also pros and cons for that. Just like even here with how we do it, there's pros and cons. But what we need to focus on is the CMOs being effective in what they are supposed to be doing, driving value to our members, as well as I think the rights holders also understanding that it is a business. And in the same way as an entrepreneur studies what's happening, studies the market so that they can position themselves and register where they need to register, it's the same thing here as well. You need to know the industry that you're stepping into.
All right. So now what's coming up from, you know, your answer right now is a couple of questions. The first one being, are you guys governed by a mother body, whether in South Africa or globally? Do you, for example, you know, is there a body that, you know, sets standards or how things should be run? That's number one. Actually, let's start with that, and then, because I tend to take long with the questions, so we can start with that. If you could explain if you guys answer to anyone, or if everybody is just, you know, doing what they think is best.
Okay, so there are, in the case of Capasso, two bodies that, two international bodies, in fact, of which we are members of, one of them being CSEC, and the other one being BEAM. So CSEC is for a a body for collective management organizations across the world.
Okay.
And there's the African region, there's the European region, there's the Asian Pacific region, and we are a part of that body, as well as BEAM. So BEAM is a body for mechanical rights in particular. So we are a member there as well. So, but what happens with CSEC in particular is there's a lot of communication between that body and the CMOs. And I'll speak on Capasso's part. There is a lot of interaction. We submit our numbers, because what they do is they prepare reports, an annual report actually, on the performance of the CMOs across the world in terms of what their revenues are, but more importantly, how much they are actually distributing. So if you are going to be that organization that just keeps collecting money and doesn't then distribute, then obviously when we then compare the numbers when the numbers are then compared in that CSEC report, then you will be seen that you are not distributing anything. Obviously, there are different circumstances for that, because it also depends on what's happening with that CMO. Some of them could be facing political issues, corporate governance issues. So there's a lot that goes into it. But there is some interaction that we have with other societies as well, and with some of those bodies as well.
Okay.
So we are not just operating in the dark.
Okay. So now, do you then, I don't know how to phrase this one. All right, I'm gonna give you an example. There's a gentleman on social media who once posted that it's important for composers to register with some international, I don't know if it's one of the two that you've mentioned, but basically with some an international organization, a collecting society, because what they found was that what they receive from the distributions, from the collecting society's distributions, or if they look at the statement from out of the local collecting society, what the records that they received from whatever platform they were using to track their work. What happens? What would cause that scenario? What would contribute to that scenario? And are there other platforms where composers are able to track their work without necessarily registering with collecting societies, or are there platforms that composers are able to track their work to ensure that they are receiving their rightful, a payout or royalties, just in a case where, Capasso is paying me 2 randa, but if I look at these statements, I was supposed to get 5 rand. What causes that scenario? Can you explain that scenario, and what are these other bodies, and what are their complications? What's the whole thing there? Because it seems to be a lot for somebody who's not clued up about publishing.
Okay. So I've heard of various. I think it was at the last workshop that you did. I remember someone had pulled out a phone and they were showing us. I can't remember what that service was, whether it was Spotify or something, but where they had logged in and they were able to see what was happening with their works, what's getting played and all. So for us, as Capasso, we are looking at, in fact, we are looking at having a monitoring system in place. So, with technology, technology by its own comes with costs. And especially if you want to get the best. And another thing with technology is that it also phases out very quickly. So it's not a 2-minute decision to say, let's get this, and then it only works for a year, and then the following year you need to upgrade, and now you are going back to the the kitty and saying, oh, okay, can we upgrade this? So we're trying to get it right the first time,
Yeah.
and trying to make sure that it's something that is solid enough to benefit to benefit us in doing what the members have mandated us to do, and also so that the members are also able to see the benefit of there having not been a system before, and well, now there's a system and we can see something. So in terms of I don't know if you were talking about registering with other societies outside the country.
No. Basically, I was just trying to figure out, Hore, in a case where um, I'm registered with whatever this platform, like you were referring to, that this person pulled out in the previous workshop. This platform that says, this is how your work has been performing, and these are the calculations based on whatever system they use. And then I'm now looking at my statements from Capasso, and they're not Hadisa Melani, you know what I mean? What would cause that for the work to not, to not be reflecting the same, or like the statements to not be reflecting the same thing? And how would we then resolve an issue like that if it had to come up?
Okay, so I think with those platforms, I am not sure how they would be calculating the remuneration, because maybe in terms of tracking usage, so they can give you a number to say streamed 1,000 times, but in terms of allocating money, I won't be able to speak on how they do that, because it also would depend on what they are seeing. It also depends on the information that they are communicating, because for us it's specifically mechanical royalties. So we know when we then go out and get a license from a music user, or your, whether it's your broadcast or digital service provider, we know what is in that agreement. We know what it is that we have been able to successfully negotiate for our members. And based on that, we are then able to take that and apply it to the usage. So that's why I'm saying that on that part, it would depend on what exactly is the information that they are relaying, and it might not even be mechanical, and most likely it is not mechanical remuneration that they are portraying there.
Okay. We've got about, I think, about less than 10 minutes to go. But now, something, I guess, a common problem with collecting societies is we see that you guys are trying to reach as many composers and the people that should be registering with collecting societies through workshops and stuff like that. But now you have, even on social media, you guys are just, always
Very
available,
active.
very, very active on social media, which is very helpful, because it means if we have our account manager or our customer services, I just go to Twitter, I know this thing will be resolved right now. But now the question is that not everyone understands social media, not everyone understands the terminology used, not everyone understands the English used. We've got traditional artists that do everything in the neck, as a Sotho artist, a Zulu, a Maskandi artist. But now it looks like English is the general means of communication. Am I able to come through? Ke tla ho wena, o le Kelebogile, ke thiwe, ke ngwanyana Mosotho, and I know nothing about English and everything that you've been saying so far. Will I be able to get assistance in my home language? Do you have provision? Have you guys made provision for that?
Okay, so we have, in fact, anyone who comes to our offices will be assisted in, especially if it's the common languages. So maybe we might be challenged with like Swahili, but I mean, if it's your your local languages, your local South African
Sesotho,
languages.
Zulu,
Yes,
yeah.
Sepedi, Setsonga, and all of that. Then we do have people that can assist in those languages. And then when it comes to our workshops as well, what we do, in fact, there's a whole planning that goes into our workshops, because then we've got a stakeholder department. But what we do is we first assess where this workshop is going to take place. We assess what we feel that the needs of the people who will be attending the workshop are. And based on that, then we will send out the most relevant person. We actually, I think it was last year, where we had our chief executive, no, our chief operations officer, our COO, go down, I think it was in KZN, where he had to do an entire presentation in
I saw
Zulu.
that. I saw
And
that.
not, oh, great,
I saw
yeah.
that.
And yes, and we could have sent anyone. We could have gone to the stakeholder department and sent someone Obuang Stswana. And then when they get there, they are unable to engage with the crowd.
Yeah.
But instead, the COO had to leave his seat and go all the way down to KZN to go and do that
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah.
And there was one also where a workshop, I think it was in Venda, where we then had to take someone from the distribution department to go to that particular workshop, because Venda was his native language, so that he could go and engage the people in the language that they understood. So we do make those provisions, and that's why I say there's a lot of work that goes into our workshops. Yeah, if it's in Soweto, Soweto mainly, if you've got Zulu, Lesotho, most likely you'll be able to reach a wider crowd. Then we will send out the relevant person. But if we need to, if we feel that someone outside of our stakeholder department is better able to engage the crowd, then we will send. If Kelebogile needs to leave the finance department and go and Alubua Stswana elsewhere, then that will have to be the case. But we do make those provisions, and I'm glad that you've seen our efforts
I'm
in that
smiling,
area.
and that's why I've got this big smile on my face, because it's honestly a concern. Because for example, I'm from the Free State, and as much as English is a universal language, and but the reality is that there's a lot of talent, across all age groups, across all genres, and that don't necessarily understand this universal language. And for me, I feel, okay, if you're gonna educate, it's important for you to educate me in a language that I can understand. Because then if I'm sitting there and you're speaking in English and I don't understand a word of what you're saying, then it's like it's a wasted it's wasted resources. So that's why I'm smiling, because it's encouraging to know, Hore, you guys put that much into planning your workshops, and so much goes behind the scenes before the workshop. So like I said, I remember that one. I saw it on social media. I think it was one of the music thingies in that. I think it was the music thingy that takes place in KZN.
In KZN,
yes, I remember that very well. So I'm very happy that you guys are making that effort to ensure that everyone is catered for. Lastly, let's see, is there anything perhaps before I ask you how people can get hold of you, is there anything that I need to know as somebody who's finding out about Capasso for the very first time, what that you feel that perhaps we have not covered in today's conversation?
I think we've touched on the agreement part, which is a crucial thing. So if anyone has forgotten that, I'm reminding them again. You need to be very careful. Yes, you need to be very careful of what you are signing, what you are agreeing to, because some of these agreements you end up binding yourself to for the next 20 years. Only to find 3 years into the agreement, you decide that this relationship is not working for you, but you've locked yourself in. So you need to be very careful about that. And I think, to me, yes, there's it might look like there's too many CMOs, but once you actually start to understand them, you
Understand.
realize that there isn't all that many, you
Mm.
know. But it's just that when you are when you are on the outside and you are looking in, it just looks like there's a CMO there, who's doing what. But once you actually get in and you understand, and you take the time to understand who's doing what, what's happening, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Mm.
education is very important. And as far as I know, for all the CMOs, they do have platforms where you are able to engage them. So over and above visiting the office, picking up the phone, I've been on one of the on one of is it Sampra's website the other time, and they had a list of frequently asked questions. And so if, and as well as contact details if what you are looking for isn't there.
Mm.
So people need to educate themselves. But like I said in the beginning, it's the same as being an entrepreneur who wants to do something and they study the industry so that they know what's happening. The same applies here as well. And you know, CMOs are there to work to the benefit of the member, to be honest. That
Mm.
is why they are established in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
Capasso is a non-profit company, so
Mm.
we are not in it for the money. We are not
Mm.
in it for profit.
Mm.
We are a non-profit.
Mm.
So we are there instead to ensure that we play our part in contributing to the IP foot, the intellectual property footprint in South Africa and Africa as a whole. And you know, CMOs, to me, there's just a lot that goes into it, because we also interact with CMOs in other countries, and we're getting into all kinds of agreements, and all of this is to the benefit of the member.
Mm.
You know, it's not about us setting up a building and putting in all fancy things. No, we don't do that. We are there for the members. So in as much as we are coming to the table, then the rights holders need to come to the table
Do
as
their
well.
part, definitely.
Yeah.
So where can we get hold of you? Is there a website? Do you guys have a head office, or do you have provincial offices? Social media? Where can we get hold of you?
Okay, so the best way to get hold of us can be through telephone. That's
Mm-hmm.
011 447 8870. Can also you can also drop us an email on info@capasso.co.za. And because everything is going onto one email, then we are able to streamline what the inquiry is and then send it through to the relevant department, so that people don't have 10 email addresses for 10 different people,
Mm.
and now you've got this particular issue and you don't even know of the 10 who it is that
Yeah.
you need to be writing to. So if you just send to that one email address, your email will be redirected accordingly, and someone from the organization will contact you. And then you can also just go into our website, www.capasso.co.za. It's an interactive website. It was done in-house. A lot of thought went into it, you know, so we really put something together that we felt would communicate the passion that we have to make sure that you know, rights holders get what's due to them. So everything is there. Our physical address is on there as well. We are based at Samro House, 8th floor, in 22 Cross Street as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get onto our website and it will have all the information, how to become a member, how to contact us, which I've just shared briefly, and
Mm.
so forth. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This has been you know, every time I have a conversation with someone about a particular topic, I always feel like I am learning, you know, from scratch. Because, you know,
Okay.
I don't think you stop learning. You know, it doesn't
No, you
matter
don't. You
how long
don't.
you've been in the industry, like it,
Yeah.
you know, you keep understanding things better. And I must thank you
Mm,
for availing yourself today, because I am in a better position to understand what Capasso is about and what
mm,
Capasso does. And I'm hoping that everyone who will watch this episode will understand the role of Capasso as a collecting society in the South African music industry. And thank you, thank you, thank you for availing yourself today.
Pleasure.
Thank you so
It's a
much.
pleasure.
All right.
Okay then.
Have a good one.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye.
cool. Bye bye.